Hi everyone, it's Raina. So this video is if you have your natal Mercury trining Pluto. A trine is the most cooperative aspect of all, meaning that when any two planets are trining one another, the uh, the most positive energy will be generated. And so it's a sextile is another friendly angle, but it requires effort. Whereas the trine, it's almost like innate within the person. They may not even feel like they're actually having to do anything. It's kind of like having a talent, but in terms of the kind of ways in which you operate. And obviously that does happen. Some people are really good at communicating, and this is an example of that. Some people struggle, and some people just naturally have the gift of gab, or in this case, I think it's more of the mind and how does the mind work. Because Mercury can be, the way that you express yourself, but it can also be the way that you think, the way you take in information, and the way that you spit it back out, right? So, according to advanced astrology, people with Mercury trine Pluto are very astute. And the word astute to me means a person who gets it, like bam. There's a certain topic that's being discussed, and they can get to the heart of the matter. That's what it means to me. Very perceptive. And perception isn't necessarily connected to intelligence per se, because think about this. Think about people who are very scientific or mathematical, and they have that great left-brained ability. So they're very technical or something like that. But if you have a discussion sometimes with people like that, and maybe you're talking about something you see in the news, and you're talking about some person, and you talk about their motivations for doing something, I notice that there are certain people where they're very, very limited when it comes to psychological things, which to me I connect to spiritual things. You could say, when I say things, I mean subject matter, or, talking points. And this is because some people have an intelligence that's connected to these finite things. And when you're talking about human beings as a whole, that takes things a lot further. And not everybody has that type of ability. So it's almost like being very intuitive. And a person who's very intuitive, they might be good at technical things too. Who knows? But I just find that to me, that's what I think that they mean by astute. And they talk about this person being able to tap into the psyche of another individual. And the and being able to deal with complex issues, because that to me is what having a penetrative mind is as well. You're getting to the root of something. It's not shallow, in other words. And so complexity implies different layers, maybe different influences. And some people are very one-track minded. And there's almost like a narrow quality. And so this, you have to kind of be much more, that's where perception actually comes in. And I like, this is very interesting because they said that you prefer, this is verbatim, depth to breadth, which means rather than just like a wide range of things. And we would say somebody who has Mercury in Gemini might enjoy a smattering of information, variety of topics. But somebody who has Mercury in Scorpio, and they mention that having this trine is like having Mercury in Scorpio, uh, is very like kind of like that laser beam, and they're very much interested in diving deep into one particular, maybe one particular subject. And that's what they say is that if you find something like a subject that really intrigues you, then you know, become that expert on that subject. And um, it's like a specialist, I would call it. And this is really important because we all probably have had times where we wanted to know something about a product or you know, some subject matter, and we're asking, and people know a little bit about it. Like if you're talking to a salesperson, but they don't know the whole thing, and it's always kind of frustrating because you want to do it. And they mention being obsessive when you have your pet subject matters. And that certainly obsessive qualities are associated with Scorpio. So by extension, that would, you know, because Pluto is one of the rulers of Scorpio. The things that you're interested in can be, in particular, things that are considered taboo subjects. Now, I did not see, and they said, you know, mysterious things. I would also say macabre, and, you know, like things that are gory, true crime might be some an interest, and things along that nature. Now, that was interesting because they talked about uh, black humor, that you might find that enjoyable. But what's interesting is they said that you are not tasteless um, unless you are intentional about it. And what I think they mean by this is that sometimes people make kind of jokes that other people would consider offensive because they involve things that are kind of taboo or what have you. And they're not being sensitive to people that may have, you know, suffered or whatever. And the reason that they're saying that you wouldn't be tasteless is probably because this is a trine. Um, and, you know, you have to realize that with Mercury, the things that people communicate are really part of our personality. For instance, if somebody uses a lot of profanity or they're very vulgar in their speech, that is going to show up as people are going to associate that as part of somebody's personality. And it may be a detriment if somebody is very foul-mouthed, or they make crude jokes, and they don't seem to take into account the company that they're keeping and that they're saying this to. They may rub people the wrong way. Well, if you're talking about difficult subject matters, you're going to be received a lot better because you're going to know your boundaries, in other words, and you're not going to be probably insensitive, but you still are interested in those things. Another thing that's very, you could call it like talented with this conjunction, I mean, this trine, is that you are very perceptive, and that means that you can tell if somebody is full of crap. In other words, your bullshit detector is intact and able to hum at a moment's notice. And the reason, and they even talk about how this can be painful, because if you're in an environment where you can't call somebody out on that, it can be very difficult for you. Now, I'm trying to think of an environment where that would occur, but it's like people can't get things past you, very likely to. However, because you have a trine, you're still able to kind of conform to those societal standards. You know, for instance, if you had a square, you might be more rebellious against people who are fake. And you might kind of, I would assume you might even kind of push back on that. And, I'm not saying that that would even be wrong, but the thing is that when you have a trine like this, it's like you're able to perceive what you need to, but at the same time, um, you're able to be in harmony regardless of how other people are acting. But it is something that um, you probably would rather be in the company of someone, of people who maybe even challenge you. That's not what they said. They just said be surrounded by people who um, help you expand intellectually. But I think this is almost like more of a moral thing. When people are fake, inauthentic, this kind of like touches at the core of our being, in terms of our values. And but it's also, no, I guess you could also say it's an insult to our intelligence if somebody tries to push something on us that we know is not true. And that's another thing. They said that you are not, it's not easy to manipulate you. But you have to resist the temptation not to manipulate others, because you would be a master at it. You'd be a pro. So it's interesting. They say that you're talented when it comes to influencing others. So you see the difference between those two words, manipulation and influence. And I would even say with influence, inspire. And it's a totally different energy, because manipulation is really self-serving if you think about it. And when you're trying to inspire others, I don't really like the word influence, because I still feel that that is, the ego is kind of injected in that. But I think what they mean is inspiring other people. That that is serving others, because you're trying to help them to better themselves. And I think that with Pluto, there's a sense of empowerment that is here. And I didn't, and they talk about being, good at debating, but I actually think that this is a great combination for somebody who would be like a life coach or like a public speaker that could inspire other people in that way. So it's interesting that I don't see that here. Another thing that you're supposed to be good at is critical thinking. So, they mentioned that you can make people feel better. I think that this is how I would look at that, is that this combination can help other people to transform their lives through their mind. And that's really what, Pluto is about transformation, and Mercury is the mind. So what is the power? And Pluto is also about power. So the power of the mind. Not only as it pertains to what we can achieve within ourselves, but also how we can influence other people positively through the way that we speak. I mean, if you think about even parents who are guiding their children in life, what do they say to them? Is it mostly criticism, or are they, teaching their children that they are powerful beings? So it's a very nice aspect to have, and I hope that you enjoyed this. And if you would like a private reading, the link is below. Thanks for listening. Take care. Bye.